A gracious good day. This is Professor Halstead, Coach T, bringing my dear OPAL universe, the first recap video. This will be a hopefully quick recap of your decisions, your first decision in OPAL universe taking place here in 2025. And I have to say the three teams did fantastic. Red, blue, yellow did absolutely. Shout out to Mark on our red team, Bailey and Adriana for our blue and yellow teams, my three validators. I appreciate all your hard work and getting all your teams ready and up and functioning for these decisions. It's really hard, the first decision, because there's a whole user interface to learn. Uh, Real quickly, these recaps I do for the sake of the visuals mostly. So I'll talk through some of them and show some of the results and give you some feedback, obviously, but most of that will happen in announcements, by texts, messages, and within Halo, so everyone can see it. We're working a lot by text now, especially with my validators, so I'm trying to repeat that in Halo and in messages so that all the teams get the same answers when a question is asked, because that's really the fair way to do it. Now, as you get towards this is only our first decision, you're moving on to our second now. Second is much different because you'll have team feedback, you'll have what happened with your decisions. You're not in a vacuum. You'll see how did the customers respond to your portfolio management? What did the competitors do to help you or bring you down? The pricing of the products, all kinds of moving gears moving together. So I'm going to share my screen, go over the results, but some of these you'll just hear a break. We'll do a jump cut because I'm going to be jumping to visuals just so you have them. I'll show it, show it, show it. And as I show those visuals, you'll get a chance to take screenshots as you get towards your final report, presentations, papers, and all that, you'll do as a team. I've had a lot of questions of what do we do individually and what do we do as a team? You can do everything as a team, but things that are benchmarked that are not in CLC, you do have to submit individual papers. You can work on them together. There's not huge APA sites, word counts. We want to keep things concise as if it's a business presentation to your board, your venture capitalists, and use business communication language. When you get the slides, use the graphics that we generate. You'll see a lot of graphics here. For instance, you'll see the famous market white line for each team. How close did you come to what your customers wanted in the characteristics you engineered? Then the other moving gears, what did that do to CapEx? Most importantly, what happened to your return on capital employed, your ROCE? And what happened with the other financials, your EBIT? And did you cycle back and forth to your budgets? How did that work out with what you chose for engineering? And how did supply and demand match? Especially supply and demand and lost orders over inventory. We'll spend a little time on that and you can see more of that in previous recaps, other videos, and especially on biz485.com. You go to the site, you'll see lots of graphics on lost orders over inventory. Otherwise, you get this sine curve where you got a whole bunch of inventory, then you got a whole bunch of lost orders, then a whole bunch of inventory, lost orders. You want to keep that line at 0 for lost orders over inventory. And that's really the balancing of supply and demand within the sim. And so that's how all the pieces are connected. And you have to keep cycling back and forth between your decisions, your budget. Everyone did a great job, a record job in terms of not crashing and burning too badly because you didn't make too many bad decisions. I warned everybody to stay away from low cost and eco in the beginning because they're fast growers later, but they can kill you at the beginning. And everybody's eating red ink if they do too much in that part of the portfolio. Some people build the flywheel. You all did fantastic in image. Some people build a flywheel there and take over the whole sim. Their financials turn fantastic. They shut down a plant in one of the ones that they're not doing well in, but they keep depreciation. They keep the plant open, but they just don't produce. They keep the inventory there, uh, but they pay off their depreciation. They're 8% or whatever. They'll pay that off to keep the workers happy. in that plant, but they're not emphasizing that line. They've decided to focus on another line. That's portfolio management. You have to do all four lines at some level in this sim. In the 5 decision sim, it's not the same as the 8 decision for the ground course because they have an actual merger. The merger, when you get to our merger, is a simulated merger with the other teams or with, Ford or GM or Toyota. You make your mind up how you want to crunch those numbers, but we don't do the actual merger like they do in the longer ground school. So you won't have to deal with that. You also won't have a recession. I also have set the sim so that it's a publicly traded sim, so you can see your competitors' results. I'll be showing some here. All these visuals that I'm generating that you'll see are available. Take screenshots for your later reports, etc. So that's the whole reason for that. Without any more intro, let's jump right into the results. Okay, to begin with, here's our ranking for the first decision. The red team came out on top. Blue is a close second, or would have almost been a first, as we'll see. Yellow did not do as well for several reasons, especially some large changes in the sliders, but did fantastic, as you'll see in EBIT, in the in revenues as well as in the image line, just as all three teams did. By picking family and image, as we said in many of the videos, many of the cheat sheets, and by focusing a little on that, you did really well in terms of financials, all three teams. Record. Many teams have to take a loan, are cash negative, have problems by by coming up with a strategy like, let's, love the Lord and take care of the planet and do all eco. And financially, it's not ready for that because they'll get high revenues in it. Their emissions will go down because they have so many units of these little ecos that the image are less polluting because you have less models out there. It's, like price times quantity. Same thing with revenue. If you're not bringing in profit, if it's not profitable revenue, each extra sale is a loss. So that's what happens a lot of times in low cost and in eco where they become problems, and yellow had some teams, but they also were a very good competitor. Let's take a look at that. If you go up here, first of all, these are the 6 indicators, of course. They're heavily weighted towards finances. So emissions, the soft indicators, emissions and employee morale are very tied. Emissions are tied to revenue. How many sales do you have? And so is morale. If you've got a high revenue or a high profitable company, all the employees are happy too, because that means you don't have returns. Don't have quality issues. In this sim, the quality issues are not fixed in a dealer network. They're fixed in the plant, so they slow your production down. That's something you have to know. There's a lot of these gears that turn that relate to each other. You do one thing and 20 other things happen. And that's what real life is about. The law of unintended consequences. So when you're running an auto company, as this is a real sim and is really happening, many people are doing this to learn how to run companies as in CEO in different kinds of. So as we were saying, you look at this CO2 and then you look at employee morale, and you can be really high on that. And if you're number one on both of those, you can still be number one. But look at what actually happened here in terms of the numbers. You've got a possibility of the lower the points, the better. Because if you're all number one, you have 6 points and you've taken the whole thing away. So we're saying that red team's first, blue team's second. Well, this is just 2 points difference. They're really tied for number one. And if you look at the financial indicators, sales revenue, ROCE, the four of them, retained earnings and share value, blue team blew off the lid. They won in ROCE, they won on returned earnings, and they have the best number one in stock. So they should have been number one. Yellow came in and pranked them by becoming number two in revenue. So again, losing money, not doing well in the financial indicators except for revenue. So what happens is if you really price right and you do a lot of marketing, you'll do really, really well in revenue. But if you don't have the supply to match that in production on the CapEx side, by correctly judging and forecasting what you're going to need and what you have to produce, which is what happened with yellow, then the supply and demand are off. So that's what you learn as you create more lines and more models, and you really fine tune this. You'll see that the customer's needs change because you're infecting demand with where you invest, all the teams, and you'll see there's interaction here. Literally, yellow brought blue down to number two here because of being number two in revenue. They blue knocked blue out of that spot, or blue would have been number one here. So you can see the interaction between the teams and then the interactions between the models within the portfolio. That's all happening, all these moving parts. This is real life, flying the plane, real business. There's a lot of moving parts. And look carefully at biz485.com, review the slides in the videos, and you'll see, and then look at these results that we're showing and saying, how do these parts move together? What do we have to do? How do we have to iterate differently for decision two by deciding what the other teams are going to be doing? Where's our niche? Where can we go? Sending out messages, co-opetition, which is cooperating and competing with price signals and all that. So you're in it together now. Decision two is going to be really interesting. And you can be last through four decisions, and decision five, take it all. And that's happened more than once, but with a great start financially. And you can see that everybody, the idea of having a positive, even being positive in ROCE at the first decision is a record. I've never seen this done so well, especially by blue team. To get that kind of return means you really match supply and demand. We'll see that on lost orders over inventory. Some of these, like the white market line, you need to take screenshots and save them. This is a record for you. I'm going to briefly show them and not talk a lot about them because there's a lot of them. You got white lines for all decisions, for all the lines, for all the teams. So that starts to add up. So I'll just hit this. So this isn't a 2-hour video. Try to keep this to a half hour. And so, which doesn't always happen because sometimes there, especially on the first one, there's a lot of things to take a look at. So now that we've seen the rankings and what they can show us and what the teams can do to each other, let's jump over to the actual EBIT. All right, here we go. This is decision one or Amber Universe, and these are our EBITs. This balancing act is what happens, and I rarely see so much success so early. Usually these are all close to the line, and there's a lot underwater in all of the portfolio. This is your portfolio EBIT results for all the teams. You can see that blue actually blew the doors off in family as well as in image. Fantastic job financially. Look at that EBIT to starting is just mind-blowing, and matching supply and demand. And we'll look at the whole universe results on top of that in a second. But if you look at, again, low cost and eco, at least 10 times in the previous videos, in the lead up of the first 2 weeks, I've done numerous times saying, be careful of these two lines. They're later they're question marks and potential stars, but our cash cows are these two. And everybody got that message and did fantastic in image. I've never seen this. I've never seen where all three teams have done so well. And blue just absolutely did not do so bad in low cost and didn't do that bad in eco either. So blue is almost a model of how to do this sim in terms of portfolio management. Well, then how is it possible that red could win? Because you have to also look at employee morale and emissions, and that is important in terms of how do your revenues work with your return. Are you getting enough sales and revenues? And the trick of lost orders over inventory is that if you overmarket and don't produce it, you're going to have a whole bunch of orders, but not sales. Sales are deliveries. So those are all lost orders. You spent all that money on marketing, and that's crushing your financials. That happened a lot with yellow, but it also happened to an extent with red and blue. But you'll see how much better the match was when we look at lost over inventory because of the financials there. And that's truly, if you keep looking back at your EBIT as you make these decisions and see the results, do the budget plan and say, oh, that's better, oh, that's worse. You simulate within the sim. That's how your budget works. Then you make your decisions. The sim within the sim because you're modeling. There are teams, I kid you not, who put these into decimals. They build Excel models. They look at ratios. They run it like a real company. They have financial tools at work that they put the sim it's the sim results into. They use AI. And there's we instructors, we compete and we sometimes we have a maybe have a universe with only, 6 students, and we're on each team helping and working and trying to balance off what we know. So each team gets some advantage of what we've seen for decades, of what works and what doesn't. But at the same time, there's a lot of modeling to be done within the model and also outside the model. If you're a CFO or if you're doing, you're questioning, what do I do? What's my role as a quant? Your role is to model the model. Look at what's happening, figure out to the extent no one can break the sim and figure all of it out. What are the algorithms? It's too complex. But on the other hand, you can see, okay, these are the main things where we're not matching supply and demand. Oh, look at this opportunity. There's a pricing opportunity here. Or, wow, we've got good demand here. Let's build a flywheel. And a flywheel is basically you're generating you're putting money in the basement because you have a machine, you have leverage, you're using other people's money, and you've got major market share because you have a larger installed base over which to apply at the unit and at the margin your new features within the engineering of that, where you see the customers' trends are going and the white lines are going. So fantastic job here financially. Um, Obviously, Yellow did great, really good on revenues, but they got eaten sort of badly in eco and also in low cost in terms of investing there, but not being able to close those. But the revenues were still strong, and they also, family is really strange when you look at it. You look at how well everybody did here. Mistakes were made in family, but that's easy to do because family's not image. If you use those techniques, like family wants a dealer network. They're a family car. They want price. They're price sensitive. Price is elastic. You got to be careful. When you set a price, you can lose all your demand. So you cannot use the strategy you use in image in family. Blue figured this out, that family needs something a lot different. The other two teams didn't, especially Red, our leader, didn't figure out in one of the top producing lines financially what do they need? What does family need? And we'll see that in some of the sliders without giving it all away, which you can't really do. So, all right, let's hop over. Well, first of all, let's look at some of the financials here. And you can take a shot of this and analyze it. You can see where in one. All right, let's look through some markets here. We're just going to do some quick snapshots here before we jump into lost orders over inventory and some of the things that the individual teams did. These are our markets business line and some of the winning criteria. Take a look at these are portfolio shots that you can just take screenshots of if you need them to see what's happening from the last to the next period. Those are orders volume. Here's our sales volume we've already looked at. EBIT, that's a snapshot of where the portfolios are going. Where's the growth going? This teaches us you've got basic demand in the fact that the mature portfolio elements are family and image, and the upcoming ones are low cost and eco. And yet, that's not only basic but also derived demand that comes from your investment. As the teams invest, then demand increases also. So there's two aspects of demand. And we already did EBIT, which we had in much more detail. So you can see what's happening, especially in image here. And let's go to our business lines where we can see what's going on with our teams. This is showing our orders volume in low cost, family, eco-friendly, and what we all know about already, which is image. Now we're going to go to lost orders over inventory. This is absolutely the key indicator and something we're going to be looking at a lot because this is how you tie supply to demand. And orders over inventory is, the opposite because when you have a denominator in terms of a measure, it's the opposite in a graph. So, and if you have two pluses like in a regression, it zeroes itself out. So the goal here is for everyone to be along the zero line. Whoever has the closest to zero line usually wins the sim. And of course, it's different in a portfolio by each of the lines. Look at red here with low cost, something where people usually get killed. They didn't make big decisions in low cost. They kept it down, did not make giant slider moves. As we said, flying the helicopter, don't. You have to be real subtle changes. So this means that, and the other two teams show exactly the opposite of what we said happened when we looked at EBIT. This is driving your EBIT, it's driving all your financials. It's the key, the heart of everything is lost orders over inventory because yellow here has this huge inventory build, which means they marketed it. They got a huge, they got a huge number made, but they didn't emphasize low cost in terms of let's push it. They made it, but didn't push it, so they had an inventory build up. On the opposite side, blue, in low cost, they had lost orders where they did push low cost, but they didn't make enough. So those were orders they got without sales. So this is what happens. You either build an inventory because you're not marketing enough, but you're making it, or you're marketing it a lot, but not making it. So you're having lost orders where you can't deliver what's being ordered and delivered with all those great revenues that you're having. So these they're counterintuitive because it's like, wow, I got this, I got a whole bunch of revenue, but my financials crashed. They either crashed because you couldn't deliver them, or because each one was not profitable in terms of the EBIT and the price that you were charging. Uh, let's look at family and look at blue, which I keep saying, wow, they're now the whole thing has shifted. The zeros down here, but again, what's happening in family where we said everybody should be doing fantastic in family because it's a really producing. You can't use the same strategies that you use with image, and it's like what happened with family. Here's what happened with family. Why did blue beat red and what's going on with family and what's happening with yellow? This is a great indicator. It's showing that red is building a bunch of inventory, and yet, so what's happening with CapEx, and did they look at making enough cars for what the family wanted, what they needed in the dealer network and on the marketing side, not just engineering. And yellow, then the reason they aren't as close to the other team is this is where they did fantastic in image, but yellow really should have been closer to blue here in terms of having the lost orders because they didn't do the right manufacturing. They did not model for all these changes in this revenue I'm going to get within family. How do I make enough to sell them and do those orders? So this is a whole bunch of giving away money by doing great marketing, getting great revenue, but not being able to produce the cars. So you got to get your supply up, or you got to get your demand up. Moving that down, get your demand up. Moving this up, get your supply up. So that's the story in family, which is the major story financially of this sim run, because of this particular decision run for Opal. Eco-friendly is our other problematic one, and I wouldn't expect anybody to be close to zero here. And well, we red kind of moved closer between periods to the zero line. So red is to be congratulate that they're going in the right direction, but it's still, if your baseline is down here, everybody's really off. Eco-friendly isn't a big winner for anyone because this is your zero line and you've got a huge amount you already had a bunch of inventory that you weren't selling. And instead of selling it, you're building more inventory. So eco can just kill you if you don't look at where we are and where we're going. And image, um, again, this everybody's making good money on image, but you red is probably the closest. This scale is, as you can see, is a little wider, but red's a little closer in image, but nobody's doing bad there. But it's where did you start with and where are you going to? What are you betting on? And are you betting enough that you're not falling into the place where you're not making as much as you're betting on? And blue obviously did really well in it, but they're also building inventory. So this is a next period thing you also have to look at with LOI. What are we going to do to adjust it so we're not playing the game of the sine curve? Oh, it's up, it's down, but you're right in the center of that zero, balancing the supply and demand. So now let's look to the actual, let's go and look at some of the actual white lines here, which will help you understand what happened with the individual decisions. Let us go there. All right, here's our red team. Let's jump into our decisions and business lines. I'm not going to do a lot of corporate budget stuff. You can figure that out. But you can see here in terms of low cost, here is the famous white line. And this is not a time period on the x-axis. These are these design sliders. How were they changed? If they were all kept sort of in the middle, it means you're not doing a lot of investment in it and you're not pushing that. But wherever you don't have to worry about perception here, but on your decision compared to what the market wants, we're trying to match this very closely. As it goes up, we goes up, and as it goes down, we go down. So we want the blue line to match where this white line is going, and this is not significant in terms of this is what's happening. It's what are the features that are close that the customer wants, and how do the white line as it changes with investment, how well do we hit on what they want in each line? So we can just look at, and then there's a value chain, etc. But let's look at family, and these white lines are important that you take shots of these and see how are we matching what the customer needs each place, and small differences are big differences. So if you pick something like comfort within family and you're dead on, you're going to be dead on in demand. So that's not going to help you with your supply. You got to turn over and look at budget, etc. So again, I want to do just show the white lines here, and as we go forward, you'll see better and less ability to pick where the market's going, predict what they're going to like because of what is people are investing in, and looking at your sales and your budget and saying, what do we do right? Obviously, everybody did a lot of things right in one of the toughest lines to actually please, but it's easy to overspend in image because you see you're doing so well. You may want to be at a 4 or 5, but you may be a six, a seven, or eight, and that's going to cost a lot more money and impact your financials. But it's going to get you, closer to the rhythm of where the market wants to be. And as you end up with things that they do and don't care about, you might be over investing in something that image doesn't care much about. They care about technology. It's higher where they care about it, but we're thinking here they care a lot about it. So anticipating this is not a bad thing. We'll do quickly over the value chain. We'll get low cost, do family, and we'll do the value chain and family because of what happened in family. And then we will head for blue. Okay, blue decision, business lines. Let's start with low cost. You have over investing and under investing in terms of which parameters they care about. And that includes marketing also, which we're not going to do a lot of marketing here because Nobody's really pushing low cost or eco at this point. That should be fairly flat. A lot of these are just to take shots of, see what's happening, decide on your sliders, try to figure out what the competition's doing, where they're at. Nobody has enough time to do full analysis of it, but you can actually see who's overinvesting and underinvesting in each area and what that does to your sales and your demand. All right, let's get into what everyone did quite well in. This is very interesting. This is really interesting that you're an image, which is a performance vehicle, and Blue has it at, and Blue did so well financially. Well, this is expensive. What they did is they said, wow, expensive costs a lot, or performance costs a lot, but they wanted a lot, but we're going to underspend in there because of CapEx. That's a really interesting decision. I will not make more comments on that. It's giving too much away. Uh, these are your low cost financials. And we want to especially look at capacity, inventory, how do they change between the three, next period's plant capacity, and then how's that being affected by effective and actual engineering appeal. This is all in low cost. You're going to need a good shot of this. Let me make this smaller so you can actually see it all in one piece. That's an important screenshot. There's an important screenshot. Look at EBIT with red here in family. Why did this happen? CFO for red team, for family. This is something you need to look at. Why did this happen? Engineering appeal. Look at yellow with engineering appeal here in terms of investment, and look what blue did in family. That's really interesting. I'd like to contrast that to image, but we'll do eco first. Blue, look at your inventory here in eco and your plant capacity next versus last. There's a chart within biz485.com that's really important that shows the formula for how do you actually use your forecast and then translate. Most our CFOs and our quants put that into an Excel. They model what the demand is and they say, okay, this is what the plant capacity needs to be with that demand. You just add back the depreciation. You take your CapEx from last to next, and that formula is on biz485.com. All right, let's look at image. Red, take note, image, and yellow. Let's see, where's our revenue here? I want to look at blue revenue. All right, there's our blue revenue right there, compared 5 compared to 8. That's a pretty big gap. Engineering appeal, you want this closer to 100%. Otherwise, you're over-engineering. Blue did really well financially because they did great on the returns on image, but without over-investing. And then you also look at where is lost orders over inventory in terms of the capacity used, how many units you made, how many, what do you have left in inventory? I look into inventory for image with red. Where is it? Yeah, look at that. One left compared to the 20s there. What's driving orders in low cost? What's driving orders in family? What's driving orders in eco? Family was an important one. Look at that closely. An image, you're doing great. What's driving your orders? Now, on the ROCE side, what's driving cost? What's driving cost and low cost? These are decisions that are made at the margin. In other words, what are your units within the portfolio that add marginal cost and then affect your EBIT family? All decisions are made for all portfolios at the margin, and you have to do a marginal analysis, which is what is the next unit going to cost, and how do we spread those costs across our installed base? And that's the key to building flywheels, is looking at marginal analysis within your models. Obviously got a red issue going on with capacity and effective engineering. We looked at the numbers. That's just a graphic version of it. That is it. Those are our major indicators that we've looked at. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch the video. Most of these videos will stick with you forever. Take shots of that white market line and see how it progresses. Find out what are the changing needs of those customers because of what the teams are doing from a portfolio standpoint. Get ready to have some low cost and some eco by decision 3 and 4, but for decision 2, this is the first real decision where you're looking at what's the competitors doing. Wink and nod, can we share this market? We're doing great in image, but all 3 teams need to fix family. You're doing great. Red strategy of not making too big changes paid off big time. They did fantastic. Blue strategy of really watching EBIT did awesome. I shouldn't give everybody's strategy away, but all things are good. Yellow's revenue strategy was fantastic. So strategy wise, you're doing great. But remember all the moving parts here of matching your lost orders and your supply and demand. And you'll start to get comfortable with your decisions more and more. By the time we get to our last decision, some changes happen with inventory. We'll tell you about then. But watch the videos, keep binging them. There's a before decision 2 video that's got some really good tips and hints and cheats in it. And again, watch the announcements. That's what I use as my method of if I have validators that are calling me on the phone, talking to me, asking me a lot of detailed questions. Be fair, I post in the discussions or especially in announcements details of what I told that team about. I'm not going to prefer one team over the other, but if someone's taking the time to do a whole bunch of texting and calling, then that's really important. So again, we'll see you on the other side. Watch carefully for those announcements and keep on texting, messaging, posting any questions you have. Uh, this is Coach T signing off, but I'm here for you. I want to see each one of you really do fantastic with your decisions. And at the end of this course, I do recommendation letters. I am a reference for my teams, and you'll find that in your career, whether you're a seasoned professional moving up the line or you need an internship and you got to start running a company, that it's not just the recommendations and having experienced this, you'll see that your team goes forward for years and sometimes decades where you stay friends and you help each other with your careers. And this is like nothing you've ever experienced in any other class because those teammates are helping each other, all of you succeed. And by the end of this class, I'm okay if the whole class gets straight A's. It all depends on your teamwork. Please do not make the mistake of missing team meetings or not contributing to your team because you can't use the graphics or you can't cite them or you can't do any of the great stuff that makes this class is a lot of work for working adults. I've got people with kids and on active duty military. It isn't just folks just doing the schoolwork. And so get your return on your investment. Um, do the best you can with your teams, but then leverage that. The whole teams can work on each assignment, even the ones you have to put in individually. Team can work together on it. Cite your teammates, cite each other, and you'll be a well-oiled unit by the time you get to the end of the sim. Thanks for taking the time, and congratulations on some fantastic results, especially financially.